we just came back from the Keys, right? We've now done 3 events out of Big Coppet, just above Key West there in Stock. And our event last May brought in 822 derelict and abandoned traps during the closed season. Not supposed to be out there, of course. So anything that remains in the fishery, FWC deems to be derelict or abandoned. Just one of those traps had 26 adult spiny lobster inside of it. I mean, that's big numbers, right? Yeah. For a single trap, 26 lobster. And then you consider we had 821 other traps that came up that day. So when you consider that we're seeing thousands of specimens of commercially viable spiny lobsters, stone crabs, blue crabs, the event that we just got back from in Key West 2 weeks ago, we did it at the end of July, right before mini season started. We had the biggest haul in a single trap was 18 adult-sized spiny lobsters, right?
This is the Tom Rowland Podcast. Fascinating stories to amaze, encourage, and inspire you in fishing, fitness, and the outdoors. And we're brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I started this podcast as a way to connect with my friends, people that I admire and respect, and you. It has been a learning journey that's made me a better person, a better fisherman, a better father, and a better athlete. I'm so happy that you're on this journey with me, and I'd love to hear from you with show suggestions, guest suggestions, or questions. The best way to get a hold of me is through text. You can text 305-930-7346 for the fastest response, but if you prefer to email, you can send that to podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. That's a dedicated email address just for the show. If you like this show, you can show your support by posting about it on social media and tagging me. Text the link to a couple of friends that may also enjoy it, and subscribe and leave a 5-star review if you feel like I've earned it. The website is tomrowlandpodcast.com, and that is where everything lives. All past shows, you can go and listen to any show. You can look up all the different shows that we've done, both the How To Tuesdays, the full links, and the physical Fridays. They all live on tomrowlandpodcast.com. And the social media is Tom_Rowland, ROWLAND, on Instagram, or you can go to our big account, Saltwater_Experience. I hope to hear from you soon. So now let's get on to today's show.
This is Captain Neill Holland, president of Ocean Aid 360 with the Tom Rowland Podcast.
Neill, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Tom. Good morning. Happy to be here with you.
Yeah.
I'm calling from the Ocean Aid 360 houseboat office here on the St. Petersburg waterfront.
It's nice. I could see it moving a little bit in the background. You said that the sea tow boats were leaving. Is that what's going on?
That's right. I think the seas are going to calm here in a bit, but yeah, they got us rocking for the moment.
And that's cool. So tell me about that boat that you're on.
So it's a project that I wanted to do for many years. I was looking for a trailerable houseboat to do my little Everglades mothership stuff and up into some of the Panhandle river systems and all of that. And I found a 1979 Yukon Delta tri-hull, under most circumstances, a pretty darn stable fiberglass hull.
Yeah.
And built a cabin on it. And man, it's been great so far. I just love it. It's got a nice breakfast bar, workstation, kitchenette, a big oversized kind of custom made futon style couch and bed. And Mercury 135. We've had this little 26 footer up to 30 miles an hour, believe it or not.
That's awesome. So 26 feet. And what kind of fuel and water and things can you carry?
We can do 40 gallons of water, 40 gallons of fuel. And yeah, it's been fantastic for everything we're trying to do.
Right on. So you can stay out there. Do you have solar, batteries and stuff?
No solar at this point. We may go to that at some point, but right now we're doing the generator setup.
Okay. All right. So how long have you gone out without having to come back?
So far, like 4 days.
Yeah. That's pretty good though. That's pretty good. And then if you could, pull your skiff or something behind that, that'd be That's
that
the
was
setup.
the vision.
Yeah, man.
You got it, man. You got it. I don't know if I'm
water.
ready to take it to the Marquesas, but yeah.
Well, the Marquesas is a pretty easy trip, honestly. A lot of the places that you're going right now are probably more difficult. But what about the draft? What kind of draft do you get in that houseboat?
14 inches.
Really?
Not bad at all, man.
So you could go anywhere. I mean, that really is anywhere. I always wanted one like that. And, for my family and we rented a couple and I've seen some people sell them and I just thought, man, that's just the ultimate, to be able to go anywhere. It's like,
well, like I mentioned, I have it moored down here on the St. Petersburg waterfront, and I sit behind a tinted glass here when I'm working on the laptop or whatever. And all day long, people come by and say, look at this houseboat. Look at that thing. We got to get one of those, So it makes me feel good about having it, certainly.
Yeah. And simple is best. Like you don't really need that much, but the draft is huge, like if you can go in shallow water and then if you can stay out there for, 3, 4, 7 days. And then if you got enough horsepower to tow a little boat behind you, a skiff or a bay boat or something behind you. And that's right. That's the setup. Yeah. That's really nice.
Yeah. I'm going to be working with Chris Peterson and our buddies over at Hell's Bay to come up with a little bitty skiff to put behind this thing at some point. Nice. They've got the Eldora model, be perfect for this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, man. So tell me a little bit about OceanAid 360.
Sure. Yeah. OceanAid 360, we started it up in 2017. It's a nonprofit based here out of Tampa Bay. And our focus is on finding and retrieving derelict and abandoned traps and fishing gear, ghost gear, right? Yeah. So we started our programming in 2018 through a pilot grant that we got from NOAA's Marine Debris Program. It lasted us 12 months and allowed us to do 7 events around the perimeter of Tampa Bay with different communities, about an event every month or month and a half. And what we did was we launched a sort of inshore tournament fishing model, right? Like we're also familiar with for the redfish tourneys and everything, called the Ghost Trap Rodeo Tournament Event Series. And we're typically working through a volunteer model. Nobody's compensated from among the participants that turn out, but they bring their vessels, they bring their family or their fishing buddies, and they go out for a 4-hour search for derelict traps and other forms of marine debris during closed seasons. And they bring it in and we do a leaderboard experience and we provide industry donated prizes to top collectors. So through that first year of programming that NOAA afforded us, we blew through our targets for collection. We collected almost 30,000 pounds of blue crab traps, stone crab traps, and other forms of plastics and non-biodegradable items jammed up in our mangroves and everything. And it kind of set us on our path. So today we're working really closely with FWC and with NOAA and with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And they kind of collaborate with us and provide us with support so that we can travel around the state to hotspots selected by FWC and provide this kind of cleanup service, but with a fun community angle, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. So the derelict traps, what was it that that drew you to that as as your mission, as opposed to just picking up debris or trash? I mean, I know that the ghost traps keep catching, and maybe you can go into how damaging they are. I'm sure you have lots of stats on that. I mean, but I'm interested in why you kind of moved in that direction. Was that where you thought you could move the needle the most, or what?
That's a great question. I think we were cognizant of the fact that there were other groups out kind of focusing on general flotsam, styrofoams and plastic bottles and that kind of thing. And in the course of running my fishing charter company here out of St. Petersburg, I noticed plenty of ghost traps on our grass beds and everything. And I guess if I was looking for the genesis, it could be the fact that I had to jump in 10 feet of water in the middle of tarpon season off of St. Pete Beach to cut a stone crab trap out of my propeller with all my customers on board and the tarpon school, running down the beach. Mm-hmm. And it's a ghost trap. There were no other traps in the area or anything like that. So I think as I travel around the state and talk to other anglers, everybody has an experience or two like that. So beyond that, I think once we started, myself and my team at Ocean 360, once we really started to educate ourselves a little bit on the ghost fishing angle, and the impact that, lost and abandoned gear can have on our shared resource, we started to say like, okay, well, this is something that we could focus on. Let's see what we can do about it. Mm-hmm. So our first couple of events, let's say, really came off with flying colors, and there was more gear out there than we expected. I think our first couple of events, we showed up saying, "You think anybody will find one today?" And when it was all said and done, we're having to call in the city to bring special dump trailers and everything to help us get it all out of there.
Wow!
So now, after 4 years of doing this kind of programming, we're pretty well set up and have seen a lot.
Yeah. So let's talk about the ghost trap, how damaging a trap that's just out there, besides, getting in your propeller and stuff like that. What else do they do that's bad for the environment?
I mean, honestly, I think that the best anecdote for it is that we just came back from the Keys, right? We've now done 3 events out of Big Coppet, just above Key West there in Stock. And our event last May brought in 822 derelict and abandoned traps during the closed season. Not supposed to be out there, of course. So anything that remains in the fishery, FWC deems to be derelict or abandoned. Just one of those traps had 26 adult spiny lobster inside of it. I mean, that's big numbers, right? Yeah. For a single trap, 26 lobster. And then you consider we had 821 other traps that came up that day. So when you consider that we're seeing thousands of specimens of commercially viable spiny lobsters, stone crabs, blue crabs, the event that we just got back from in Key West 2 weeks ago, we did it at the end of July, right before mini season started. We had the biggest haul in a single trap was 18 adult sized spiny lobsters. Wow. Right. But in addition to that, we're getting muttons in the traps, hogfish in the traps, all kinds of stuff. So, I always explain it to folks as kind of like an economic element, right? It's out there, these traps and this gear, it's out there fishing when we're all asleep, right, and depleting our resources unnecessarily. And the nice thing about it is that in the Keys, we've actually, all of our participation in the Keys for the most part is from commercial stone crabbers and lobstermen. So, I mean, we're getting commercial participation, and everybody knows whether it's, the commercial guys know as well as anybody, but all user groups know at this point that it's problematic. We want it out of there. We want more resource in the fishery for all of us to share. And we certainly don't want it dying in an unchecked box.
Mm-hmm. So when the commercial guys help out and they pull up some of these traps, some of the traps are perfectly good. The buoys have just gotten chopped off of them, or yep, they got moved, and then that fisherman couldn't find them anymore. So do they get to keep those traps and use them, or what happens to all the traps?
That's a fantastic question. It's a question that we only get from folks who are really in the know about the fishery and such. The challenge with the reuse of stone crab traps or lobster traps, for example, is that the legislation as it stands right now does not allow permitted retrieval groups like Ocean Aid 360 is to gift or resell or anything like that a trap unless it's going to its original owner, for example.
So some of them have like a tag on the. A lot of people tell me how it works, because I'm not a commercial fisherman, but I'm familiar with it. But the buoys will have something branded in them, some sort of a marker on them, and then sometimes the traps will have a tag on them as well, but not. I don't know. Is it always? Do the traps always have the owner's name on them?
Not always. Okay. No, they don't. And as it stands right now, just to kind of clarify my response to that, right now, FWC and our permit that we hold mandates that all the gear that comes in with us needs to be taken to landfill, basically, unless it's wire mesh blue crab traps, which that gets reutilized through municipalities that we partner with who use it for living shoreline projects. They actually dip the wire mesh traps in concrete, stake them out in areas of shallows, kind of a pyramid formation, and use it to recruit larval oysters and clams, start new pilot oyster reefs for water filtration and to prevent shoreline erosion.
That's interesting. So, like when I first heard about this, that you were getting these traps, I was just interested. I figured that you had to have a permit because, I mean, first of all, it's a great thing that you're doing. Their traps are all over the place, and they're, you know, everybody's got, just like you say, stories of getting the lines caught in the trap lines and just all kinds of nightmarish things. But when that trap just sits there on the seagrass, I'm sure it's killing the seagrass over time. And then the real thing about that deal is if you have those 16 or 18 lobsters in there and one of them dies because they don't have any food in there, I guess they get in and then there's no food. They go in because of safety. Then there's no food in there and then they die. Well, they become the bait. Right. And so
that's exactly
you get
right.
A fish in there, like a smaller fish that can go in there and starts eating on those. Well, those end up not being able to get out as well. They die and it just continues to catch and catch and catch and catch and catch and catch and catch. And it never stops. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
exactly. And based on the materials composition of the different trap types that we use around the state, the degradation process and the time horizon for them when they're actively fishing out there, even though they're lost to their angler, is different. Stone crab traps, of course, because of their construction, they're probably out there fishing the very longest.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting with traps. Like you would think that if you're not around them much or you're not familiar with them and you see, you know, the fisherman comes out there, they pick up the traps, they get their haul, they rebait the traps, they put them back in the water, and that's where they're going to catch the best, right? And a lot of times they spray them off and get all the, you know, certain things like a brand new trap, other things like it to be a little bit weathered, but like the stone crabbers, like that's one of the things. They come up, they clean everything off because a brand new trap will catch better than anything else. Right. And so they go out there, and this is just kind of not for you, but some of the audience people are just kind of understanding what's going on here. Those traps will go out there, and if they're brand new, they're catching the best. And if they're baited, they're obviously catching the best. But that doesn't mean that if there's not bait in them, that they won't continually catch. They might not catch as well as when they're fully baited with fresh bait and everything like that, but they will keep catching. And that is very, very damaging, especially if the buoy gets knocked off. And then we have storms, like all kinds of storms, minor storms, thunderstorms, where you could get a 40-mile-an-hour wind gust in some of these thunderstorms that are not named. It's not a hurricane. It's not a tropical storm. It's just a thunderstorm. And for whatever reason, the rope gets broken, boats run over the ropes. It's not all these fishermen's fault. Like, you know, some people might think, well, you know, these careless fishermen are just leaving their stuff out there. They don't want to leave their stuff out there. Right. That trap costs money and time. And you look in what, you know, they got to rig the whole thing. The trap's there. That's not something that they want to lose. Right. So it's not like just these careless redneck fishermen that are out there just leaving their stuff everywhere. Like it's certainly not. Yeah. No, so, I wouldn't change a darn thing about your explanation there. That's the perfect way to describe it. And the guys that we have worked with in Key West, just like folks that we've worked with all over the state. I mean, the folks who come out to participate in a ghost trap rodeo with us at Ocean Aid 360, they're conscientious. They care about the fishery. And everybody knows that there's a real value to that gear. So we're working on kind of starting some negotiation with FWC to see if it might ever be possible to implement a buyback program for commercial guys who come out and participate with us, collect traps, and then would like to repurchase at the end of the day for a reduced rate. This is something they've asked us to do whatever we can about because they know the value and so do we. Right. So we're kind of working on it right now. That seems like a really good idea. And then that recruits, the commercial. It would be great if, in your explanation, you were saying people that participated in the cleanup. So now you're encouraging participation, and then maybe you get a trap at a third the cost of, it's not a brand new trap. It's an older trap, and it's probably been in the water for a long time, but some of them can be cleaned up and used again. And you can buy those cheap, or
that's right.
Or even somebody like most people understand that as a private citizen, you can also put out stone crab traps, right? So you can have six per
five
person,
traps. I think it is per person.
So that would be another way that these things are getting lost, and it's very easy to lose one, right? Like it really is.
Yeah.
Now, have you had one of your events like post hurricane? What's the closest to a hurricane that you've had an event? Because that seems like it's going to be a gangbuster bonanza of getting traps.
No, it's a great question. I think that most of the debris that we've seen in the Keys, from Big Coppet to Big Pine, for example, has been kind of residual or legacy Irma losses. We're definitely seeing some of that, in addition to the non-trap debris that's jammed up in the mangroves and that sort of thing. I know we've all seen it.
Yeah.
This event that we just came back from 2 weeks ago, we had a 8-foot long aluminum fuel tank come in that was resting on the grass beds. Wow. The last one we did last May, we found somebody's dishwasher jammed up in the mangroves. I mean, just, it really speaks to the harrowing time that residents went through down there.
Yeah.
But we're glad to have a role in helping to clean it up and get it back to its natural state.
So in the events that you have, are people getting credit for the trap? Are they also getting credit for the lines and the buoys and everything else? Because a lot of times you don't see the trap, and just the line is up in the mangroves, and the buoys and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if I understand correctly, you're asking about how we kind of comprise the leaderboard and that sort of thing, right? Yeah. So with traps being our focus area, or kind of our priority type of debris, we award a high number of points for each trap that a team brings in. And then we weigh all of it gets weighed actually, but non-trap debris, we weigh it and we come up with a points valuation per 50 pounds or whatever it might be. Right.
Nice. Yeah.
So whether we're doing an event with volunteer folks that are, weekend warrior types or recreational anglers, or we're working with commercial men and women around the state, we kind of employ that tournament model, and we try to make it fun for them, provide a nice catered lunch for free, and the event participation is free. And whenever we part ways at the end of the half day together, the camaraderie is really strong, and people's sense of stewardship is kind of like reinforced, and I think that it's impossible to stand back and look at the 20-foot long trailer that is just, completely crowded with debris and traps and all kinds of other stuff, and not feel like you've had a real impact for the day. And it's something that is important to continue in your fishing practice and as you move forward.
Sure. A lot of people probably have wanted to pick up traps in the past, where you see them out there, but you don't, if you're not a commercial fisherman and you're just a flats guide, you don't necessarily know the rules about touching somebody else's fishing gear. And it's frowned upon to touch anybody else's gear. So that's where I wanted to ask you, like, if somebody wanted to do something like this, is it best just to go to one of your events and take part in the event? Or is it kind of off season? If you see a trap, it's fair game. Like to coach people through that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question, and something I'm glad to have the chance to speak about. So in order to tamper with traps that you find, whether they're buoyed traps or not, whether you would look at it and say, well, that's clearly derelict and it's been abandoned, or not, you are not allowed to touch that gear without a permit. If you're operating under an organization and have a permit in place, then by all means, that's the time to do it. But otherwise, should not be done. You can report it to your local FWC office. you can report it to us if you'd like at oceanaid360.org. But the thing I want to mention here is that FWC is actually looking for groups, community groups, homeowners associations, Audubon societies, Sun Coast Fly Fishers Club, whatever it might be, to become informed about this issue, apply for a permit from FWC, receive a little bit of training, and conduct their own retrieval events in their community during the closed fishing season. So any gear that's left out when the season's closed, like I said, it's deemed derelict and abandoned, should be removed, but has to be with a permit. And FWC is really looking for some additional support around this issue, and we welcome it.
Who would they contact if somebody was interested in doing something like that?
Yeah. So FWC, if you go to the blue crab page, I mean, it's as simple as Googling FWC blue crab. At the bottom of the page, there is a section dedicated to trap retrieval programming and explains kind of the permit process and the templated form that needs to be filled out, and the program coordinator up in Tallahassee, how to go about the process.
And
so
go ahead. Sorry, that would also incorporate stone crab and lobster traps too, off of that blue crab trap.
Yeah,
page.
It does, exactly. Yeah, obviously because the state coastal fisheries kind of managed in different quadrants or management zones, right? Your stone crab trap fishery is going to close statewide. Your lobster fishery is going to close, but the blue crab trap fishery is really kind of strange. And it was only implemented about a decade ago, I believe. And it rolls around the state through the different management areas. So it's not closed statewide at the same time. Let's say the Northeast would be closed. It's just a 10-day period during, I believe on their side, it's even numbered years. So it's the same 10-day stretch each year. It's in January. But it kind of shows up in their area just every other year for 10 days, and it won't come back until the next even numbered year. So I know that's a bit confusing, but what I mean to say is that the blue crab trap fishery closure just kind of rolls around the state at very clearly defined times on the FWC website. And those 10-day periods are an opportunity for community groups or fishing groups to get out and remove lost and abandoned gear.
Gotcha. What do you know about the blue crab fishery outside of the state of Florida? Because I heard the craziest thing, and I want to know if it's true. Well, first of all, do you know anything about blue crabs, like in the Maryland blue crabs,
Chesapeake, right? And all of that? Yeah.
Well,
sure.
I mean, that's what you hear, like the Maryland blue crabs, and that you have this this incredible crab cake that comes from Maryland. Right? And it's supposed to be made from a Maryland blue crab. Well, somebody was telling me, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it sounded true. And that if they're having a hard season up there, they're not catching a lot of crabs. The crabs could be caught somewhere else, and then they could go and sit in that water, like in a trap or whatever, for a certain period of time. Maybe days or weeks, or I don't know.
Yep.
And then they were a Maryland crab. Yeah. Do you know anything about that? Is that a conspiracy theory, or like what is that? I don't know.
The extent of my knowledge on the Chesapeake blue crab situation is that they had a really tough fishing season, series of fishing seasons over the last few years. But as far as being able to soak them for 10 days and call them Maryland blue crabs, I don't know about
the 10 days. It could be it was a period of time. Which was what I was told. And so it's like, I guess, you do all this marketing for the Maryland blue crab. And if you have a tough season, which everybody has a tough season, you're dealing with weather. Yeah. It's like being a farmer. And if you have a tough season, then you'd have to change all your marketing to, well, these are Florida crab cakes. And they're almost as good as Maryland crab cakes, but they're maybe even they're better. But then you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like now Florida, now we're just setting up this whole industry in Florida. We just gave it to them, right?
I know.
So, I don't know. Somebody was just telling me that if you I don't know, that there was a strategy that you could take them up there, you could soak them, and then they would be called Maryland blue crabs. And so then that got me thinking, well, wonder what kind of crazy laws there are about going across state lines with live crabs, and then you're putting them in the water. Like, it seems like there's all kinds of rules and regulations that you would have to abide by, or you could possibly be
totally
in
hunted by the USDA
of, like, I don't know. It seems like crazy time. So
it really is.
Let me ask you this, man. I was doing this research on you and Oceanade 360, and man, there's a story on your website about how you got started, and it's crazy. I want to hear this story about how you got started in doing this, because it's a really, I mean, the way it's written on your website, it's a really interesting story about Tony L.
What do you have in mind?
This guy, Tony L., he doesn't even know he was a catalyst, right? I'm looking at it right here. So tell me about how you got started, man. Because you got this whole Oceanade 360. You're a fishing guide, but it seems like you weren't always a fishing guide. So how did this whole thing happen?
Well, the funny thing is that's not even our native website, oceanade360.org. That was a profile that somebody wrote.
It was on this Catalyst
business
that's
feature.
What I'm reading.
Exactly.
I looked it up
Catalyst.
Because I did look on your website, the Oceanade 360, which is a very nice. It was a very nice website. But I found some other information, and I started reading this, and I was like, man, I got to ask him about this, because this led you to the UN. And tell me about this. This is a crazy story.
Yeah, man. So let me see if I can tell it the mildly abbreviated version, but grew up
we
here.
We got plenty of time.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, man. So I grew up here in St. Petersburg, a beach rat and crawling onto residential docks that we should not have been on so we could fish their snook light and all that kind of stuff. And then transitioned into the flatback canoe, fishing all of our mangrove preserves and all of that. And the next logical step for me at that time, based on my other joy, which was writing about my fishing experiences, I enjoyed putting pen to paper and that kind of thing. And, I got a kick out of reading all the fishing reports in the St. Petersburg Times newspaper, which was a really heralded newspaper at that time. I was introduced to Terry Tomlin, who was our sports outdoors editor here, who had a great reputation in the business and was really well liked around the Tampa Bay area. Chatted with him about my passions, and he said, "All right, kid, come on in. Let's see what we can work out." So he let me write some of the columns, the Captain's Corner column in the St. Petersburg Times, and kind of got me started on the publishing some of my stuff. Right. So over the course of time, as I graduated out of high school and was still fishing like a maniac, he encouraged me to see if I could get into the Columbia University writing program up in New York. So I applied, was accepted, lo and behold. And during that time, I spent all of my off hours working at the two premier fishing tackle shops in New York City, which was Urban Angler, which is a fly shop right on Fifth Avenue, owned by the Fisher family for many years, and world-renowned spot where all the dignitaries and rock stars from all over the world pass through and buy their gear when they're in town.
I've been there. Yeah. When I went to New York, I made a special stop by there because I was getting there. Nice. They used to send out a really nice catalog. They had a really nice catalog, and I felt like I knew these people because I'd been getting their catalog so much. And so I just dropped by and said hi to them, and it was a beautiful store, And I was getting a lot of customers from them that were, for some reason, I don't know. I got on there. They were sending me a lot of customers, and so it was a nice time to just stop by and say thank you and talk to them. So that shop, and then there was another shop, right?
Yeah, I worked at Capital Fishing Tackle, which was dedicated. It had not a fly fishing line or fly rod or fly in sight. It was dedicated to conventional gear and the party boat tours out of Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, and kind of the late night bluefish and striper trips and all of that kind of thing. So I got a chance to experience their fishery, kind of in a wide range of experiences, right? Everything from the Montauk stuff to fishing right behind, in Jamaica Bay, right behind JFK Airport,
wow,
where you're casting the striped bass up in the marsh, really cool fishery. But graduated out of college in 2008 and right into the economic recession that was going on at the time, and really struggled to find a more career-oriented job. And lo and behold, one of my regular customers, his name's Tony Luscombe. He had worked for the USDA for many, many years, and his wife worked at the United Nations in the Peruvian delegate's office, I think it was. And he said, hey, I know you, I can vouch for you. And he said, I know you're looking for writing work. He said, I have a contact that works for a federal contractor. They do humanitarian work and they're looking for some grant writing support. Do you think you could write a grant? And I said, I'll write anything that they'll pay for. I'd be glad to do it, And so I applied. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I applied, was hired, offered the job. And turns out that my boss for the next 7 years in that role was a fellow who had retired from the State Department as a diplomat and foreign service officer for the U.S. government for 25, 30 years. He taught me the ropes and taught me how to engage in some diplomacy and do grants administration work and conduct business with the federal government. So it took me all over the planet, literally from East Timor, near Indonesia and the north of Australia, where I was working on food aid programming and agriculture, but had the opportunity to get away for a day and go catch wahoo and yellowfin tuna, out on a hand line out of a dugout canoe, all the way to Sri Lanka and all over the place, man. Been all over the place doing that type of work. So it taught me it taught me the ropes on how to design programming. And it's a skill that I was able to utilize as we kind of set it toward our passion of protecting our watersheds here in Florida when I returned in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is such a crazy turn of events. Like it's like the door closes in 2008 to anything that you think of, but it's not really closing. Yeah. It's an opportunity. And you get this incredible opportunity. It takes you all around the world. Now, why would you was it just too much travel, or what was it that you wanted to kind of change and come back to your roots a little bit? Like, why would you? That sounds pretty cool. Like what you were doing.
Well, after by 2015, 16, I logged right at 11 years in New York. And I really missed my home waters. I missed my family. Everybody here is in the St. Petersburg area. And I'd met a girl and,
there it is.
And we were, of course. It's every fishing guide moves to New York story that ever happened. So we were both kind of ready to make our break, and, luckily at that time I'd established myself enough in my career work, doing the federal grants administration, that my director, he told me, hey, look, take the laptop, go do your thing. Don't let the work suffer or whatever. And he said, me, I'm old school, so this is not going to last forever. But while we're kind of transitioning the portfolio to junior staffers and training them up, let's have you go ahead and stay on board. So I came to Florida, consulted for another year and a half or almost 2 years doing that kind of work, and then launched my own entity doing international consulting work, and also launched Ocean Aid 360 at the same time, 2017. Wow.
And so all of this background work and the writing of grants and the learning how to do business with the government and government agencies and stuff, how did that help you with Ocean Aid 360? Well,
it's so funny. I was talking to another executive director of the Coastal Impact Fund, right? Which is it's kind of a fund based here out of Tampa Bay, where they're providing support for projects that are doing innovative and new things in the marine debris or just kind of coastal habitat restoration space, right? And we were having dinner just 2 nights ago, and he said, I have to admit, man, when in 2017, 18, when you guys wrote your very first proposal and won your very, very first grant award, a lot of us were looking, standing back with arms folded saying, now who the hell is this? Like they'd never heard of us. And had no context for how we worked or anything like that. But luckily, we had a real solid design, and we proved ourselves, and we formed a lot of really great partnerships in that first year that's still with us, partners that are still with us today, and allow us to do what we do and do it well.
Mm-hmm. So, and those partners are like outside the industry or industry partners or what?
Well, it's a lot of different things. So when we very first started, we collaborated with Coastal Conservation Association.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with the Clearwater Marine Aquarium here in West Central Florida, and Coastal Impact Fund, as I mentioned, and the kind of preeminent watershed organization in our area, which is Tampa Bay Watch, mm-hmm. right? So collaborating with them, they kind of helped to give us some credence to the work that we were trying to do. And honestly, I mean, even though I kind of laugh as like, they folded their arms and said, now who the hell is this? That might have been for a 15-minute period or something like that around the water cooler. But in truth, they really welcomed us with open arms, and wanted to see us be successful and collaborate and try to inform residents in our region about this issue that was transpiring with ghost fishing and ghost gear, and how we needed more support, hands and people out there on event days to clean it up. So, right. Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing about it.
That's super cool. So what's the vision for the future of OceanAid 360?
Well, we have an event coming up on August 13th at Titusville, focused on the northern stretch of the Indian River Lagoon. We have recently welcomed a new partner in Hells Bay Boatworks. They're passionate about what we're doing. They understand the value behind it. And they're bringing out their build team with 3 of their boats to come out and participate in our event and helping us promote on social media to get boots on the ground. Glad to report that event has about 115 teams registered already.
Really?
Yeah. Between boating teams, paddling teams, so kayakers or canoers, and then shoreline walkers. But we've got about 40 boats registered, which is a damn good field for a marine debris collection event.
Yeah, that's huge. Like so let's talk about that for just a second. Like when you're thinking, okay, well, we're going to go to a new area. I don't know. Have you done one in Titusville before? Or
no, we haven't. That
so it's a new area. How do you like? What's the marketing that you're doing to kind of explain this? I mean, certainly you're going to pick up debris, but what does it look like? How do you get that many people to buy into this? Like, is it the tournament format, or is it like fun, or are there big prizes? Or like what is it that?
Great question. I'd say it's the tournament format. I think that's allowed us to be successful from the very start, creating that sense of excitement and fun and articulating that it's family friendly. I think that from the general public, we see a lot of response and great turnout. Like our work oftentimes is more toward communicating with the commercial groups or like diehard fishermen, guides, whatever it might be, to explain that like this is not your snowbirds and Tivas and big high black socks with a big floppy hat walking down the beach. This is like, we need you in your gauze built tower boat or your Dorado or your, Lake and Bay. We need you in your Maverick in Hells Bay or whatever it might be. And we need you up there on the stick, and we need you moving quietly and calmly through the shallows. with your polarized glasses on and elevate it up so you can really see down into the water, and utilizing your same sight fishing techniques that you'd be sight fishing redfish or bonefish or permit. But in this case, looking for traps, So, I mean, the buoyed traps, of course, those are going to be easy to spot. And that's kind of like the first round of collections, right? That's what everybody grabs first. But then among the like more seasoned angling set, like that's where we start to get traps that were lost with no trap or no buoy or line or anything like that are kind of on the edge of a grass bed or on a roll off or whatever it might be. So having folks that are really intimately familiar with their fishery, care about it, know how to move through it without doing damage to it in the shallows and grass beds and such, it's really important.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those guides, they already know where they are. They pull past that thing all the time. Like, God, get rid of that thing, Exactly. But
you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
I don't know who would get rid of these things, but like after any of the hurricanes that we've had in the Keys or even big storms, I mean, there was one time that there was like, it looked like you put 200 traps in a washing machine and they just all got spun up together, and the line, I mean, literally like 200, and it was sitting right out in front of Hawks Cay, right at the head pins. And this was like, I mean, a mass of rope that was, you couldn't put your arms around it, and buoys everywhere. And it sat there for a long time. And then one day it was just gone. And
interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it must have been FWC or somebody, but it just, gone. And you could see all the traps down there too. Like, it was just a big mess. Yeah. And that was spun up by a hurricane, right? Like, it was really, really, a lot. So I guess before or when you have something like that, you report that to FWC, and then somebody, CTO or somebody, they're going to contract somebody to go out there and pick that up, I guess, before your group existed or before you're going to have these deals. And very fortunately, we are not the only game in town. Mm-hmm. Thank God. Mm-hmm. There are a handful of groups that do this type of work. FWC does some light duty contracting to commercial guys on special interest cases like that. Mm-hmm. So there's other work going on. But obviously we all still see plenty of derelict gear in our fisheries. You see it and you know where it is, and it can be problematic. So what's the strategy to get somebody to put all these traps up on the deck of their $150,000 yellowfin? Now that's the question. There's got to be some kind of prize or something that makes it worth it to. You're so right. What do they do? Put a tarp on the boat and then kind of ease it up there, or some people have T-crafts or something like that they launch the fish out of. And exactly, we see a lot of T-crafts in the mix when we're doing the commercial participant events, but in all the events, we supply like a U-Haul style moving blanket and tarps and gloves and all of that kind of thing to really try to ensure that no damage is done to gel coat. But you're right. It's a consideration for sure. And I'm sure it's one of the things that keeps some of the folks who would be interested in coming out. They say, I don't dare do that. That boat's sitting behind my house right now. Yeah. But I mean, everybody's got some kind of, a work boat in their neighborhood or on their canal or something that you got the Carolina skiff or the T-craft or something that you could, maybe you could use that for the weekend. Yeah. And even if they don't feel like throwing a 35-pound or 40-pound stone crab trap or a 90-pound lobster trap in their lake and bay, we're looking for other types of debris as well. So we got a place for everybody. So any kind of debris, like. Yeah, during our events that are open to the public, let's say, we're doing traps and other forms of non-biodegradable debris that they can find over the course of the day. So that's going to be a lot of styrofoams, bottles. We've had pieces of floating docks come in. How much you get for a flip-flop? How many points you get for a flip-flop? Because
Not very many, man, but a few. It worked toward your aggregate.
And then
right? There are a lot of them.
put some, I just keep wondering when the day is that the Crocs are going to outnumber the flip flops that I see on the beach.
So true.
It'll happen one day.
So true.
Like, damn, those Crocs, they float so good. Like,
I agree.
They'll float right up on the beach. But it is crazy how many people lose just one flip flop in the ocean because it's just like the left flip flop. I don't know.
Always the left.
Pretty much. I mean, that's what I notice. It's pretty much always the left one.
Oh my gosh.
They're just all over the place.
Somebody's out there making a lot of right turns, I guess.
I guess so.
Anyway.
I guess so. Well, I love what you're doing, man. It's really great. And it's something that people can really get their arms around because there are so many ways that you can help in conservation and you never really see the effects. You give money to something or even water quality. It's like, okay, it's not like this very obvious visual component like what you have. I mean, you're hoping that next year you don't have a bunch of dead fish on the beach like you did last year, or you're hoping that you're doing something to move the needle so that this won't ever happen again. But with your thing, there's this immediate visual component of seeing a dumpster full of trash that was out there on the flats, and in the places that we're talking about fishing, the water's perfectly clear and that stuff shows up. You can see it, and it's not great for the experience, of just being out there in a beautiful night, place, and there's just trash everywhere, and
that's
a lot of it is fishing is abandoned fishing gear. So I really like that. And it's something that people can really put their arms around and feel like they're part of it. Like Carter Andrews' 1 piece a day thing is like, that's awesome, man. Pick up a piece of trash a day. That's fantastic. But then come and participate in one of your things and pick up 35,000 pounds of trash. That's pretty sweet, man. That's pretty sweet.
I mean, we take a lot of pride in the action oriented nature of it. I mean, in this day and age of instant gratification, how many people are clicking on your Instagram feed or whatever it might be. This is, in terms of habitat projects and watershed work, this is about as close as you can get. In the course of 4 hours, you're going to see more stuff than you could ever imagine. You're going to get a chance to see some, you're opening traps and saying, oh my God, look what's in here. I can't believe it. This is unbelievable. And you're turning it out, throwing that box in the boat with you, getting it out of the watershed. And at the end of the day, you could go home with a really beautiful fishing setup or a Yeti cooler or a guided fishing trip or a hotel stay for 2, whatever it might be, So it's a nice experience. And obviously, it's worth saying that what we do is just one essential part of the kind of full court press that needs to happen on Florida coastal fisheries and all of that sort of thing. I mean, Captains for Clean Water, they're doing wonderful work in the halls of power, right? Trying to make sure that our policymakers and legislators are listening to our needs and the needs of our fishery. So that's absolutely essential. We're not set up to do what they do, and they're not quite set up to do what we do. So we really see it as a symbiotic sort of relationship with ourselves and other organizations in habitat restoration.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So where do people go to learn more and participate in one of your events or invite you to, I don't know, maybe somebody could invite your group or propose a location that, is particularly bad. I don't know what that process would look like. You probably have to run it through FWC. Totally. But, where do people go?
Yeah, we've got a lot of information at OceanAid, that's AID, 360.org. Kind of gives a good background on what we do. There's lots of video content there, so folks could see what a day in the life looks like at the rodeo. And, as far as coordinating with us on events, we're always open to hearing about debris hotspots that need some attention. And there have been plenty of cases where local business comes to us and say, hey, we want to fund one of your events. What would it cost to have you come to our area, put this on with us, make us a sponsor of the event, and we could collaborate together. And that's something we're totally interested in,
Wow.
So, but beyond that, we're actually working with FWC right now on designing a full year of programming that will take us all the way through to the end of 2023 and see a lot of your listeners engaging with us as we show up in their backyards to do these events all around the state over the next year. So it looks like we're going to have a big, robust travel schedule, and man, we're really looking forward to seeing what we can do.
Man.
So far, it's worth mentioning, so far we've got 130,000 pounds of traps and other more limited amount of other types of debris out of the water. 130,000 pounds and well over 2,000 traps, and probably going on 10,000 specimens of like commercially viable marine life getting released out of these ghost traps back into the fishery.
But you see a lot of octopus. You see a lot of,
yes, we do.
That's one that is just doing nothing but benefiting from the trap, because it'll slip right in right between the boards, no problem, and live in there, and nothing else can eat it. And it probably uses it as a great ambush and everything, and then it can slip right out of there, no problem, man. All it needs.
FWC actually put up a video probably a month or maybe 2 months ago of a GoPro that they'd mounted inside a test trap.
Oh, okay.
And they watched the octopus come in and eat the lobster, I think, that was in there. Might have been a stone crab, but they watched it come in and attack the catch. So, and then slip right back out.
Well, sometimes when it could be a pinfish trap, it could be anything. You get in there and there's nothing but the octopus in there, and I think it's eating everything in there, and it will be the last thing, and then it will just get right out of there. That's pretty cool. I'd like to see that video. I'm fascinated with the octopus. We don't see that many of them, but they're around, and I would imagine that if you're opening all those traps, you'd see a ton of them.
We had a good number during this most recent event, late July. And actually a couple that were bigger than any of the commercial guys had seen before. They were coming in saying, look at this picture I've got,
wow,
big octopus inside the trap. So,
wow, I'd love to see an octopus eat a lobster. That would be pretty awesome.
I think FWC has that video. I'll see if I can find it for you. I put it on our Ocean 360 feed.
That's probably one of their number one things that they eat. I mean, that lobster's not that fast. It's in a cave. An octopus looks in there and says, you can't go that way. So I'm coming in head first and eat them. I mean,
know where they can go that octopus can't follow.
I know. They might not. Yeah. And octopus are pretty fast too. I mean, they really are. They're a lot faster than you might think. They're a fascinating creature, the octopus, and moray eels too. I bet you get a lot of eels in there in the traps.
We didn't see it. Well, none were reported to me in this case, but Lord knows when we're down there free diving for lobster during the open season, I see a ton of them.
Yeah. I think they get in there. Anyway, well, good luck with all this, man. It's fantastic. And I'd love to support you by either doing an event or talking about your events or announcing them. So stay in touch and let me know what all's going on there. But I think what you're doing is really good and awesome. Good for you.
Thank you so much, buddy. And I want to tell you, I had the nice opportunity to turn some of the Keys participants in our event onto your show.
Oh, yeah.
And they were particularly interested in the valve system that the two oil and gas industry guys came up with. Yeah. You know what I'm referring to for the
Rich
water
Vanek.
pipes and sewage pipes?
Yeah, Rich Vanek. Yeah. He's got a great thing going on there. And and again, another example of just one person doing something that makes a difference. It's not going to make all the difference in the world, but when he's doing that and you're doing your thing and Captains for Clean Water's doing their thing, and it all amounts to a big sea change in the whole, in everything. Like it just makes a big difference. But that was a great show, great product, and I hope that they put that in everywhere, because it really seems to be working.
Yeah, I agree. And I saw some parallels in their story and in my own experience with OceanAid 360, just because my sense of, my approach to the habitat work and water quality stuff and our fisheries is just everybody, in a perfect world, everybody would look at their own experience and say, here's what I have to offer.
Right.
How can I get this into the mix? That's what I tried to do with the grants administration work, and, dedicating federal resources, if I could possibly win them, toward projects that I thought were really important for our watershed.
Yeah.
It's what lots of other folks are doing. And, with their valve system to try to provide better quality and more timely data to municipalities when there's a leak or a break forthcoming in their water system or sewage system. I mean, that's their background and experience, and they saw that it could be really beneficial for Florida's fisheries. So I loved that. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. And I hope other people feel inspired to do the same thing.
Yeah, me too. So if you're out there and you got a good idea, go for it.
Yep. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
You could end up making a really big difference. All right. Yep. Well, Neill, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. And thanks for what you're doing. It's making a big difference. So go support OceanAid 360 and Neill and what they're doing. Do one of their events, or visit their website and see how you can sponsor or donate or whatever you can do to
come volunteer.
Yeah. Volunteer. Yeah. Even better.
Yep. So I wanted to mention to you that our Keys events that we do, they're funded by the Grassy Creek Foundation and 11 Angling. And they've been great partners to us. But on the last 2 occasions that we've done these Ghost Trap Rodeo events down in the Keys, they sent Brian O'Keefe, the famous fishing photographer, to come and participate with us. And honestly, man, I didn't know what to expect when I knew I was going to meet him for the first time, but he's just the most laid back, cool guy.
And I'll tell you.
Do you know him?
Yeah. Brian O'Keefe is fantastic. And we used to spend a lot more time together when we were both working for Scott Rods. And we used to do these casting competitions. And have you fished with Brian?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, have you ever seen him cast a fly rod?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I've fished with a lot of really great anglers, and I've been around a lot of really great anglers when we went and would do these Best of the West fly casting competitions. And I will tell you right now, Brian O'Keefe is the best fly caster there is.
No way. Better than the Ray Jeffs and all those guys.
Telling you. He is so good. And his stroke is so beautiful. And he is a powerful guy, but he doesn't use that. He uses technique, and
he's not overpowering the rod.
And he is incredible. He is really
cool.
I mean, when I would watch people cast, I'm like, man, of all these guys, the Ray Jeffs, all of them, any of them, I'd like to cast more like that guy, Brian O'Keefe.
Wow.
And he is amazing, but he's also an incredibly good angler. And he's just done so many crazy things. He's been all over the place and done amazing things. And then he gets just drop jaw photographs that are incredible.
He sure does. Yeah, he really does. When we were at the Ghost Trap Rodeo event down there, Big Coppet, just as of today's recording, it would have been a couple of weeks ago. I said to him, I said, Brian, by any chance, could you help us collect a couple of portrait shots of the commercial folks that participated with us today, which is a mix of men and women in the field running T-crafts and commercial boats and everything. And the pictures that he gave, he took them with my iPhone as a favor to me. Mm-hmm. And when I got my iPhone back at the end of the evening and took a look at it, I have no idea what setting he would have used to even make these photos. They're just absolutely beautiful. So,
who he reminds me of? Have you ever seen The Secret Life of Walter Mitty? And he's chasing after this mythical photographer that's just globetrotting all over the world. And as soon as he gets to some place, he's like, "Oh yeah, I just put him on a plane, and he just took off over here, and he just took off over there." And then you got
to get ahead of him.
You're going to have a hard time getting ahead of Brian O'Keefe, but he's kind of like that photographer. And then you see like the pictures, and you're like, "Oh my God, how did he do that?" Even with an iPhone. Like,
I'm going to share some of what he sent us, and he's given us permission to share them around with the fishing community, and for reposting and such. I'll send some your way in case you want to share them with your listeners.
For sure. Well, you got a good man on your team right there, with him. And if nothing else, you'll be entertained and
that's right.
And you'll have some good photos, but, give him a fly rod one time and ask him to hit, just strip off all the line and ask him if he can hit something way out there and just
that
watch.
Sounds good.
Of any weight, by the way. He could cast a 3 weight or a 13 weight, anything you want.
Or a tuna rod.
Anything you want, man. Now, I don't know how good
wild.
he is with spinning tackle, but or conventional gear, but with a fly rod, the dude is legit. Seriously,
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So real quick, I heard a story once that Lefty, when he moved down to South Florida, I think it might have been to take over the one of the prestigious fishing tournaments, the Met, right?
Yep.
That a lot of the guys in the room had no idea who he was. And the way that he got their attention was by spooling the fly line off of a reel and casting the fly line with no rod, just with his hands, and shot it across the room or something like that. And everybody, you could hear a pin drop. So the story goes, and the rest was history. Is that true? Have you ever heard that story?
I'm sure that it was true.
Yeah.
Lefty had a lot of tricks, right?
Yeah.
Like he was a guy that had a lot of tricks. And when he was a younger man, he had even better tricks. Like he could shoot a baby aspirin with a Come on, man. No, man. Lefty was the real deal. He could shoot guns. He could cast fly rods. He could cast spinning rods. He could do it all. And he was legit. So he could definitely cast a whole line with just his arm. And it wouldn't surprise me, even back then, the fly lines weren't what they are today. So even casting like 50 feet with a fly rod was like big deal. Yeah. So he could throw that with his arm, no problem. And but he was the real deal. I mean, Lefty was incredible. He was very, very talented. He was very unique individual. He was original, and he also he was completely legit. So there are people that have a lot of talent, but Lefty was a good combination of talent and a showman. Like he could put on a good show. Like if I got to see him put on his show many, many, many times, from the first time I ever saw him just as a casual person coming up to, I'd read a couple of his books. I was going to go get them signed, and he was going to do a fly casting demonstration at the local fly shop, and just being amazed. Like he would have people stand out there, and he's like, now I'm going to curve it right around you. And he'd curve the line around somebody standing there. And he's like, now you stand over there. Now I'm going to curve it around you, and then the other way. And he could just do all these tricks. And then he'd do it with with just his hand, and he'd shoot the whole line with one haul. And he would just leave everybody there just like, oh my God. I thought I knew how to cast, but I obviously don't. And that guy really does. But he was a good mix of real talent and being a showman, right? Like he could put on a show, and it was entertaining, and he brought that to the fly fishing world, like, because fly fishing can be pretty damn boring. And I think before he got around, and everybody was casting, just like this, and he started casting, big strokes, and he was throwing line like nobody had ever seen before. And then he'd tell funny jokes, and he keep the whole crowd entertained. And it was like, you took this boring thing and you opened it up to so many more people. And I think that was one of his big gifts that he had.
I would say that he is definitely responsible for getting me into fly rodding. Like the warmth that he had toward newcomers to the sport, and the sort of everyman quality that he could communicate, that this isn't beyond you. Come on in, come on into the fold. I'll teach you how to do it.
He's always so funny.
I think it really jumped off the page with his writing and all of that. I had Memories, Mangroves, and Magic, I think was the book that he put out many years ago.
That was
and
fantastic.
I used to flip through that thing every day.
Yeah. He would always, I remember the first time I saw him, he get somebody up there, and he's like, have you looked at your back cast? And the guy would turn around and look at it. He says, well, I don't blame you. I wouldn't look at it either if my back cast looked like that.
Oh my God. I love it.
He would always talk about an underwear ripping double haul. It was unnecessary. He felt like you just needed to just do a little with 8 inches. With 8 inches, you could cast so far. And
sure.
He was like, "You're up there just ripping your underwear, doing all this stuff."
Oh my gosh.
He was a funny dude, man.
Love it.
He was really funny.
I channeled my inner lefty when I was in New York and working for the 2 tackle shops. I used to give fly casting lessons out on the street on 23rd Avenue up there, right in front of the Chelsea Hotel. That's where Capital Fishing Tackle was. And
nice.
We'd wait for the cabs to stop at the red light, jump out into the middle of the block, and send a double haul down the way, back and forth, back and forth. Those were good times.
That sounds fun.
Good times.
That sounds fun. Yeah. Well, Neill, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Good luck with everything, and keep me posted on what you're doing. I'd like to try to help out if I can. All right, Neill, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
thanks, Tom.
See ya.